Etsy has changed so much just over the past year. I'm going to be looking at whether it's worth it as we move into 2026. I'll take you through how much money I've made across the year, what tools I've been using, and whether I still think it's a viable side hustle as we move into 2026. So my Etsy journey, I've started a few shops over the past few years. I started off first with a stickers shop. So that was utilising AI to make some cute little stickers that people could print off at home. So I was selling digital based products. And for a little while, some of them got a few sales. But as I was pricing them so low at sort of 99p, $1.50, around that sort of area, it was very, very hard to actually make profit over there. And so whilst I'll get a few sales, I might only make $1, $2, $3 a month. So it wasn't really viable unless I pumped out a ton of designs. And by the time that I started thinking a little bit more about Etsy, a lot more competition had come out and it made it very, very difficult to break through. So what I thought would probably be the best way to go about things was pivot to slightly higher price points so that I could get more profit per sale. And then I could use ads and still, break even or make money. So that was the aim. It was move to a higher price point over on Etsy so that I could run advertising, run marketing, and the seller fees wouldn't eat too much into my profits. So the second shop that I started over there was a print on demand shop. And so with Etsy, what's great about it is you can link it to a print on demand shop so that let's say you sell a t-shirt or a mug over on Etsy and say you sell it for $20, you can integrate a third party, something like Shopify, where you upload your design onto their website, you enter all of the information, and then you link it back up to Etsy. So let's say I wanted to sell a t-shirt over on Etsy. All I'd need to do is design what I want to go on the t-shirt, upload it to Shopify, link it to Etsy, and then put my listing live. Then let's say I sell a t-shirt for $20, $12 might go to Shopify, a few dollars might go to Etsy, and then I would get the rest of the fee. So that was my second attempt at a shop, but I found it incredibly hard to break through. And that's because the barrier to entry to making those sort of products is so low. Absolutely anyone can make a t-shirt design and upload it to Shopify nowadays. And so taking the learnings from those two first shops, trying to have a slightly higher price point, but then also trying to look into an area that doesn't have too much competition. That's where I came up with my third Etsy shop idea, and that's the one that I'm running today. And over on there, I sell book cover designs. So it's called Craig's Creative Shop. And over there, I have a mix of digital products. I have pre-made book covers that authors can buy. These are kind of cheap solutions for someone who's not too particular about what they're looking for. They just want a nice book cover. Or I have custom book cover design for those who have a little bit more of a specific idea in mind. And so that's the shop now that I've been running over on Etsy for almost a couple of years. So one reason why I decided to go into book cover design, number one, it's an area that I'm passionate about. So if you follow this YouTube channel, I publish books over on Amazon KDP, I make my own book covers, and so it's an area that I could easily lean into. It's something I'm passionate about, and I think that comes through with the listings. Reason number two is it's an area I've got expertise in, so I've got skills with graphic design, I can utilize AI where needed, and that really works well with being able to make good book covers for relatively affordable prices. And then reason three I started that shop is I did a bit of keyword research using a tool called EverBee. So EverBee is a keyword and product research tool that you can plug into Etsy, and I'm just going to take you through what it looks like now. So this is what EverBee looks like, and you can see here it's linked to my shop, which was made back in 2023. So it's got all the information about your shop at the bottom, but what's great about EverBee is this sidebar. So you've got things like product analytics, shop analyzer, keyword research, profit calculator, and more. And so if you go onto the keyword research tool, this is where you can look for search terms that people are utilizing over on Etsy and see the search volume, see how competitive it is. And so that will give you a great idea of whether it's worthwhile trying to create in that area or not. And so if I put in there book cover design, you can see from the search volume, it has an estimated 397 searches a month and 23,000 competitors. Compared to a lot of products over on Etsy, that's a good amount of competition, but it's not a crazy amount of competition. And the search volume, 400 searches a month, it was something that showed me that there's definitely a demand for that sort of thing, but not a ridiculous amount of demand where people might be trying to flood the marketplace, for example. So coming down here, you've got all your different keyword design variants. So you've got designer, book cover designers, and you see book cover designer here has 397 estimated searches a month, but only 1,427 competitors. So it's got a very good keyword score. And if we click view in Etsy, you can see here the results over on the platform. And so this one here at the top is actually my listing. And I've been able to list my custom book cover design here at the top because it's not an extremely competitive search term. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to rank for certain keywords that weren't incredibly competitive, but still had a little bit of search volume. And so utilizing a tool like EverBee just to do a little bit of keyword research, product research, you can even analyze shops and listings. I think it's incredibly valuable as we move into 2026 with all of the competition that's out there. If you want to try out EverBee for yourself, there's a link down in the description below. But back to whether I think Etsy is worth it. So one quick way to do this is look at how much money I've made, right? So let's come on over to my Etsy store and we'll take a quick look at that. So if we come on down here, this year on Etsy, I've had 1,830 visits. And you can see here it's quite front loaded at the beginning of the year because I was running a few ads and I was being a little bit more active with my uploads over on Etsy. And I've driven 10 orders at a 0.5% conversion rate. But what's great to see, from 10 orders, I've made $589.64 in revenue. And that's because of what I was talking about, trying to go for a slightly higher price point rather than chasing those 50-cent, $1 sales. So just from 10 orders, I've made almost $600. And you can see here in October, I made $263 just from a couple of orders. So that shows the potential over on Etsy with those higher price points. But you can see here the month before that, I got 0 sales. So that also shows the downside. So around $600 over on Etsy. It's pretty good going for a little side hustle, but it's nothing groundbreaking. But the hope is with this over time, as I add more products, as the shop gets more followers, that is hopefully going to increase year on year. It's not really happened so far, likely because of increased competition and maybe not focusing enough on my newer products, but there is potential. It's not like I'm making $50 in a year. Almost $600 in a year is a pretty good additional small income stream. However, as you've seen here, the visits have gone down. And one reason because of that is just because of increased competition. So every month that goes by on Etsy, every year that passes, competition gets more and more fierce. So that's one thing you have to be wary of as you move into 2026 is you need to be creating a fantastic product in an area with not too much competition in order to generate sales. So whilst maybe a few years ago you could get away with creating a shop, creating good products, not really doing your research and just pumping out products and hoping to get a few sales, it's a bit harder in 2026. So yes, you can still make sales like you just saw here, but you do need to try and think of a niche that you could specialize in. Do a bit of research into what people are searching for that's not overly competitive. And so since I've published about this book cover design over on Etsy, it's become even more flooded because I do talk about it on this YouTube channel. So if you're thinking about book cover design, it's not as good as you think it might be. Also, Etsy isn't necessarily the right marketplace for doing things like custom book covers. However, as you can see, I am getting a few sales still over on Etsy. One other thing to mention is that Etsy takes quite a big chunk in terms of seller fees. So not only do you need to pay a listing fee every time you make a product, so every time you put a new product up over on Etsy, you need to pay 20 cents. And then that only lasts for around 3 months and then you have to pay another 20 cents to renew it. It's not free to publish over on Etsy. But click the link down in the description to get 20 free listings. So if you're new to Etsy and want to try it out, make sure to click that link and you get 20 free listings. But if we come over to EverBee's profit calculator, I can show you what I mean about the fees. So let's say you've got an item listed at $10. For this example, it's a digital product, so there's no shipping price and there's no cost of item. So just from a very basic $10 sale, you're still paying $1.44 in Etsy fees. So that's 20 cents to list it, 65 cents as a transaction fee, and 59 cents as a payment processing fee. So almost 15% of just your pure profit over on Etsy is going straight to Etsy. So you're only getting about 85% of that royalty. So using tools to figure out what your profit margin is really important. Because let's say you're selling cheaper products, right? You're listing something for $1, you've got a 10% discount and you're not paying anything else. From that $1, with your 10% discount, you're only getting a net profit of around 31 cents. So Etsy's still a fantastic platform, but the fees do dig into your profit a little bit. And that's not even including things like ads. So in order to rank at the top of search results for your desired keywords, you might also need to use Etsy ads. And so let's say your profit is only 31 cents per sale. You might need to spend $1 to get a sale. Therefore, you're making a 70 cents loss on every item that you sell. And that's why setting that higher price is useful, because it gives you a bigger profit margin to play with. But yeah, that's my kind of general thoughts on Etsy. I'm just going to take you through some final pros and cons. Pro number one, the main one, is just the amount of traffic that's going over to Etsy. So in 2024, Etsy had 96 million purchasers on the platform. So that's 96 million people actively buying from Etsy. And so if you could get your product in front of some of those, that's going to lead to a lot of sales. But a con on the reverse side of that is that there were 8 million active sellers. So yes, there's a lot of buyers, but there's so many sellers as well. So it's so hard to compete in 2026. A pro is that it's quite easy to build kind of trust over on Etsy, because people trust Etsy as a platform. And as you're going and you're making sales, you get reviews to your shop. And so it's quite easy, as long as you're selling a good product, to get some positive reviews. And what's great about Etsy is once you've made a sale, you can kindly ask for a review, which is really nice. Here, if someone finds my shop and I've got 19 5-star reviews, that kind of straight away builds a lot of trust. They're going to think it's a high quality product and a high quality shop. However, a con to this is that you do not own that kind of customer relationship. Because you're selling through Etsy, Etsy own everything about that relationship, about that sale. Whereas, let's say you sold directly on a website, you're going to own everything. You're going to own all the data, and you're going to be able to reach out to that person, ask them if they want another product. You can potentially add them to an email newsletter, all of those kind of things. Whereas when you're selling on Etsy, you're selling through a third party, so you don't own that direct relationship. But back to a final pro is the amount of types of products that you can sell over on Etsy is almost unlimited. You can sell print on demand just by uploading a design. You can sell digital products. You can even sell something like an ebook. The thing you just need to remember is what people are searching for. And if you can find that, especially in a less competitive area, there's every chance you can create a product and get ongoing sales. But then the negative flip side of that is generally there's so much competition out there that it is very, very hard to make sales. So that's my rambling thoughts about Etsy in 2026. I still think it's a very decent side hustle, but it probably suits those that have some sort of skill that's going to help them to stand out. So for me, that's designing beautiful book covers. But let's say you're an illustrator, you can create something bespoke with your hands. Whatever's kind of going to help you stand out from other people, that's going to help you to get those sales. And so that's kind of what Etsy was created for in the first place, right? It's a crafty website. It's a website for creative people. It pushes those kind of bespoke designs and things like that. So if you're a creative individual or you've got quite a unique skill, Etsy's definitely something to look into in 2026. However, if you just looking to pump out volume, I don't think Etsy is the right platform for you. I'd look into maybe creating your own website and selling digital products over there, or looking into other places that allow you to do high volume and get some ongoing sales. But Etsy in 2026, still a very good option. And if you want some help with things like keyword research, make sure to check out EverBee. The link again is down in the description below. That's it for my thoughts on Etsy. I hope this video is useful. Any questions, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.